Gosh, it's so important to my lifestyle now and so difficult to tell people about because I think a lot of people are kind of judgmental when they're like, oh, you meditate? Okay, well, I would never do that.
When did you start meditating?
I tried to meditate on and off years and years ago. Every once in a while, like I love David Lynch. So when I was like watching Blue Velvet or stuff like that and reading, he had a book called Catching the Big Fish, I think it was called. And in that book, he talks about meditating. And there's a little bit of time there about 10 years ago that I was trying to meditate. And it's so hard to stay consistent, you know, when you start something new, like working out or going to bed early or eating proper. It's like you're like on this trajectory, I'm doing it often, and it's just gone, and you're just stop doing what you're doing. Meditation was like that for me. But about a year ago, a year and a half around about, when I went through this tragedy, when my landlord passed away in my arms, there was a moment where coming out of that, I was doing these bubble baths every day, and I still am always taking a bubble bath. Actually, a lot of friends of mine have this ongoing joke now that I talk about it too often, that I bring up a bubble bath so consistently. Like, who is this guy? Who talks about a bubble bath every day? And I'm like, well, you don't know until you try, okay? When you get in that bath and you're just... So it's like meditation came back to me through this span of just relaxing. And then I started to really meditate, and I really comprehended what it was, not even having to sit there and do what you think, but even you can lay and just clear your mind. And the whole point is consistently stopping your mind from racing. And even if you do it for 10 minutes a day, I find it causes me to take more time to comprehend the choices I'm about to make. Much more clear-headed than any other moment. And gosh, it's so important to my lifestyle now and so difficult to tell people about because I think a lot of people are kind of judgmental when they're like, oh, you meditate? Okay, well, I would never do that. I could, but really, actually, we all kind of meditate. There's moments like, let's say you're filled with stress and you suddenly are like, all right, let me relax. And you follow your breathing, you're starting to meditate. You're literally starting to bring yourself into this place. And so meditation is just without stress induced, just going there on your own, taking the time. I love to turn everything off and just lay down. I have this little eye mask to block light out, and then I just focus on my breathing. And every time, so I'll start counting my breaths, and every time my mind starts to trail, I'll come right back and just start counting my breaths. And it's okay. I think a lot of people sit down to meditate and they feel like they're not successful because they keep losing track of their mind. But that's actually the point of meditation, is to realign yourself over and over. And eventually, as you keep doing it, you'll be able to hold on to your mind longer and it won't trail off as easy. And then I get this real weird sense of alignment when I come out of it and I take the mask off after just 10 minutes. And I'll feel so calm. For hours, I will feel so calm. And sometimes I feel like ideas just start to come to me so much more frequently. And I'll tell you what, like I was smoking weed often a while ago. I've been completely sober now for maybe a year and a half or so. But throughout my life, I was smoking weed on and off, and weed's not that big of a deal. Now it's legal all over the place. But then I realized being sober and meditating, there is something to your antenna being very clear. Mm-hmm. And and we just don't see weed as being such a negative thing. But then also too, that's just the same thing as always putting stress on yourself. And that bogs your mind down. And so meditation can help with everything to some degree.
Yeah, there's a lot of debate on sort of the lifestyle choices that you make with marijuana. I've never been a pot smoker, but I do see a lot of people, and I'm not talking about for chronic pain, that's different, or some other disease, but it does seem to stifle your initiative. I don't know, some people say they're more creative with it, so be it. But I do think that there's a downside to it, and it's kind of glossed over. But anyway.
Well, I did a lot of exploratory sides of marijuana. And I can say this for a fact. when you're completely sober and you first smoke weed for a week or so, I feel the creative juices just firing on all cylinders in a crazy way. And then I feel it subside as you're smoking consistently. And then when you get sober for about a week or two, things are firing on all cylinders. So I think it goes back to that whole inclination of everything in moderation. You know, you do too much of anything, it might stifle what you're doing. And then, like you said, it really depends on the individual. Like somebody might smoke a little bit of weed and it might actually put them in a very paranoid state and they'll never be creative. And so it really depends on what it is you're after. Like one time I wrote half of a script, just obliterated every moment, and then I got stark sober for the second half of the script, and it had to do with where the character was going. And that script is really quite intriguing, and there was something to it, but I'm very much enjoying having all of that out of my life because inevitably there is a paranoia that comes with doing too much of that substance, and my head starts to... Our minds already go crazy. Like we're on the phone with somebody, it's a great phone call, you hang up, and then 2 seconds later you're like, oh, did I say something wrong? And it's like, so there's so much there to try to calm down anyways. And so spiraling back to meditation, that really does actually help align a lot of those inner thoughts because, you know, I think it's a daily thing that we all deal with this constant, how am I being viewed? And really putting a lot of words in other people's mouths in our minds that they've never said.
Right, and they may be thinking that, and it's learning. What was the name of the book? Terry Cole Whitaker. What other people think of me is none of my business, which is a very hard thing to do. But yeah, so what's the Jerry Garcia quote? Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you. But anyway, yeah, it's letting go of a lot of stuff, and we're all kind of groomed to put stuff out on social media and say, hey, look how great everything is. And so that sounds wonderful that you're inspiring me. I don't meditate, but it's inspiring me. How did you learn to meditate?
Well, you know, there's all these great videos of different individuals out there. There's these great videos of deep, well, there's a lot of people who are able to meditate very well. And there's some people walking you through processes. It's really just simply breathing through your nose, taking deep breaths, and breathing in, but then releasing slowly, slower than what you've breathed in, and bringing yourself into a particular state, counting it and stopping your mind from going on this trail, wandering through the forest of doubt that we all live within. Trial and error, but then also too, like, you don't really have to learn how to do it. Here's the truth. It's just closing your eyes, focusing on your breath, and keep clearing your mind. That's it. Nothing more. That's all meditation is. You just clear your mind, and every time it starts to go to something, like if you're sitting here and breathing in and you're just focusing on your breath, the next thing you know, you think, oh, wait, the store's going to close in 30 minutes. Oh, gotta come back and just focus on your breath. Focus on your breath. And then before you know it, it'll be 30 minutes later. And that is meditation, really, truly. There's all these ideas of meditation bowls. Well, the point is the sound of the bowl is what you're focusing on. And that helps clear your mind. But you can just sit there and just focus on your breaths.
Right, yeah, there's some amazing ASMR or also just different, these Tibetan bowls or tuning fork or things like that.
Yeah.
And it's very calming.
And you can find really great videos on YouTube of those sounds.
Right.
Put an eye mask on, lay down, focus on them, focus on your breathing, and before you know it, I say lay down because I had this misinterpretation that I had to be sitting up and cross-legged, and one reason for that is because you're the most comfortable when your back is totally straight, and you're the most comfortable, and so you can actually sit there like that for a long period of time, but laying down, as long as you're just in a comfortable state, whatever that is.
How does meditation help with creative pursuits?
I think it goes back to clearing your mind, you know, truly just clearing your mind of that extra baggage and trying to stay focused on what it is you're after, especially when we're talking about filmmaking, because a lot of times you'll find you'll find yourself in a place of I want to make this thing, and you'll be on this trail trying to make it, right? Well, that first thought, you had an idea of what it should be. 9 months later, you'll start to lose track of that idea. So I find meditating and keeping my head clear kind of keeps me aligned with my original objective. And so it's so easy. Once you bring 20 or 30 people together and they're all giving you their opinions of what it is you're making, it kind of changes. Maybe your opinion changes. And maybe it's for the best. But there are moments where it ends up hindering what you're doing, and you try to follow a different trail that maybe, that maybe you shouldn't even be following necessarily.
And have you done a whole macrobiotics or different type of other lifestyle choices, or no, just the meditation?
Well, I do a whole lot of different things. My whole day with the to-do lists and meditating and taking a bubble bath and waking up at a particular time and going outside before caffeine for 30, 45, some time, and actually realigning certain facets. There's a dead hang you can do from a bar that helps relieve a lot of tension in your back and your hips. And so I've got a habit of doing all these facets, and they all started on their own. So I would be like, I'm going to wake up and go outside every day. And then over time, they've just built up to where this whole lifestyle of, but I still eat a 3x2 at In-N-Out. I love to eat salads, but, I'll eat a triple-decker hamburger, whenever I feel like it, which might be more often than not. And I ate a ton of pizza. So it's not like I'm trying to live super clean, but I'm trying to relieve myself of the pressures that we put on ourselves. And then also the pressure on our spine, because as you guys know, making films or any kind of work like this, you're sitting down all the time. And whether it's at a computer or what we're doing right now, it's like we're rarely up running around. That's why I love Devoted in Time so much, because a lot of time is spent actually running around with the camera. I'm not actually as immobile at this moment, but filmmaking is all the same. I'll be at an editing chair for a year, so making sure. But that's why I still skateboard every day. It's still important to, I go out and I skate for an hour or so and don't jump downstairs or on handrails anymore, but, doing something active.
And standing desks are wonderful.
Yeah.
And you can have a walking pad underneath it. But yeah, sitting is so bad. I try to have a rule that I will not be sitting before noon. Mm-hmm. And if I can really push it, I try to do it, at least past 3, no sitting. So I find it just, sitting can also make you depressed and lethargic. And I really notice the difference. So.
Yeah. Well, they say if you don't use it, you lose it. So your muscles, right. You have to utilize them a little bit. And then how a lot of people squat in other cultures? It's like our body was meant to be able to squat like that throughout our lives. But in our particular culture, we don't really generally squat very often.
Right, yeah.
So we're sitting in these kind of particular positions and... also too, ever since we started talking about meditation, I've kept my back straight, because I also think a lot about the fact that I'm slouching a lot of the times. And that's something to consistently think about, because if you're sitting all the time, we find ourselves slouching and, in a particular way.
Right.
And
again, that also causes low mood and lethargy.
Oh, yeah.